On here. All right, welcome everybody to Cycle Jerks Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stewart. I'm joined as always with my co-host, Chris Padavana. Chris, how you doing?
Good. Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning?
Yeah, hopefully well. And today our guest is Tony Karklins, and Tony is the CEO of Time Bicycles, and they got a new factory up and running in South Carolina, I believe. And yeah, we're just really happy to have Tony joining us. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, guys. Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Excited, excited.
Yeah, we Tony's had a long career in the bike business, and I first learned about you, Tony, through Chris,
Yeah.
and it was in the Orbea days.
Yeah.
And
Chris and I had a good run together back in the day.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we
yeah, no
did.
doubt, no doubt, much to my chagrin.
Well, we'll definitely mention there was some cynicism between you two at one point for us with
Yeah,
Orbea and Giant, which was
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Chris definitely made it work for both of us, but I know at one point he had a really large territory for Orbea, and man, he was turning a lot of bikes, and it was the
Yeah. I mean,
first.
that was one of our kind of policies back in the day. If we found, smaller, more independent retailers that really could sell well, do everything that we could to protect them, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
In a lot of those moments, the bigger retailers would come in really trying to get it away from the smaller guys like Chris. But when
yeah,
you find a Chris that could really sell the product and got super passionate behind it, we locked in and gave big territory to guys like that, and it worked really well for the brand
yeah,
for a long
yeah.
yeah,
time.
I mean, that was such an exciting time I felt in the industry. Tony came in at the right time with Orbea because it was this really unique European brand that had a lot of flair to it at a time that
We
there
had
wasn't.
lots of flair. I mean, we were
Oh,
nothing but flair there for a
oh,
few years. I mean, when we launched in the market, it was like the most boring time ever in high end road. I mean, everything was just gray. Everything was Ultegra. It was just blah. And we came in just with a crazy color palette and a really cool sponsorship around it. And it took instantly in the North American market.
oh yeah.
We had no idea it would grow as fast as it did.
Well, and
yeah,
that was that era where Euskaltel was really
Yeah.
starting to come through. So it was just this really all this timing that had taken place was amazing, and also.
The motto of the company at that moment, because Orbea was just a very small regional brand, hardly sold anything outside of Spain and southern France, and they had this motto or mantra or North Star, and it was the industrialization of artisan craftsmanship. And that
um,
and that really resonated with me because there were things that Colnago was doing back in the day, or brands like Fondriest back in the day that were really doing super cool artistic work, but it was priced out of a price point where normal people just wouldn't buy it. It was just too exotic, you know. And Orbea decided to take that kind of design and energy and passion and put it into something that could be directly competitive with the big global brands. And I was like, that's a great idea. I think we'll give this a try in America. And just boom, that immediately worked. Just
Oh yeah.
resonated completely with the market.
yeah. So now, I was surprised back then. I was surprised to learn that Orbea was this big brand in Spain, and like I was so ignorant to the whole brand, But
I mean, it was totally unknown. I mean, when we
yeah,
started, I met these guys in late '99, early 2000, and we launched Interbike 2001. And I mean, it was completely unknown. I mean,
yeah,
'cause I had been traveling to the European trade shows for like 5 years, before doing the Orbea gig, and was doing little brands, cool little Italian brands that I was so passionate about. I got introduced to them at the Milan show, and at that moment, I knew everything about everything, and I'd never heard of Orbea.
okay,
A friend of mine that owned cat-like helmets, coolest guy in the bike industry. His name is Pepe Del Ramo. If anybody's ever met him, they love him. He walked me over and he introduced me to these guys, and I'm like, I've never heard of these guys ever, you know. And then
yeah.
6 months later, we're in business together, launching in America.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel better because
No, no, yeah, it was there was no reason to know it at that moment, you know.
yeah, Yeah. And so was you taking on the US market? Was that the impetus for the tour team for Euskaltel? Or
No,
was
they were
that
doing that simultaneously.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
first time in the tour. And so it was the perfect extra thing that we needed to validate the plan. Because
Yeah.
had we done that without a tour sponsorship in that moment, it it wouldn't have worked because it gave us the visibility to the better stores immediately.
Yeah.
You know, there was no other way we could have gotten that kind of traction without that sponsorship.
Yeah. It's interesting. The World Tour team is so important to developing a brand and,
I think it was. I'm not sure it is anymore. It's the game is so different now.
yeah.
It's still, I mean, it's still quite important, but it's not. You know, I don't think it's as mandatory as it was back then.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It was everything back then. You know.
Well,
Yeah.
that was
Go
it was
ahead.
an amazing excuse me, it was an amazing era because you had that whole Lance Armstrong surge going on, and Euskaltel, the sponsorship
Yeah,
there
we were
was
like the bad
happening.
news bears in there. We were
Right.
never going to win, but we were going to give a few stages hell.
Yeah.
And we were going to shake things up when we could. And we had a lot of drama queens on our team. Guys like Iban Mayo, who super talented, but just a disaster to have to work with and get him to a point where he was stabilized to be able to compete. But the excitement around that, I mean, everybody was rooting for us. They knew
Yeah.
we weren't going to win, but they were still cheering for us.
Yeah. Well, one of the
And then
things,
all those pictures of the Pyrenees and all the orange shirts.
Yes.
Everybody always
yeah.
thought that was Euskaltel, but that was about 25% Euskaltel and 75% the Dutch. But
Yeah.
we took credit for it
Oh.
all.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about a lot on the podcast is the Least Expected Day, that documentary series in Netflix. Where
Mhm.
have you seen it with
I have not.
Movistar? Oh
No,
my gosh! So
I, I've had it saved on my Netflix forever, but
uh, yeah. So I think you would really enjoy it with your drama-filled history.
yeah,
The Movistar team. Oh my goodness, it is a mess, and it's so fun to watch. Just
yeah.
it is
I mean, I
surprising
lived it
though.
hard because I was with the team in Tour de France, kind of working with English media. I don't know, 5 or 6 years in a row, and the drama, was intense. It really was. Somehow the media always showed up at just the wrong
Uh, yeah, you would just think at that level, with all the money invested and everything, that everybody would be very professional and it would be buttoned up. But it's clearly that's not how it's run. Maybe a couple teams, maybe a couple of the top teams are that way, but the rest of the teams, it's wild.
It's wild. I
Yeah,
mean, these are young kids that grew up riding bikes, and it's there was not a lot of personal support around a lot.
yeah,
And it was especially back in those days. It was pretty raw.
sure.
It really was.
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of like running a bike shop. It's kind of smoke and mirrors sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Tony knows about running a bike shop. I was surprised to learn
That I
that
do.
you were a shop owner at the age of 16.
I was. I
Wow.
started in working in a bike shop at 12 and fell in love with it and figured out a path to being able to purchase out, one of the main shareholders of it was a guy in Dallas. And I had a friend whose father was a local banker. This was the local bike shop, and it was kind of stable in this small little stable community. And he gave me a loan to buy them out. And I was a shop owner at 16.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
It really is wild. So,
I mean, I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it.
yeah.
I
Well, it says,
started at the very most basic jobs when I was 12, just taking out the trash. It's probably a year before they had me changing flat tires. But then just kind of watching how it worked. And this was a cool little shop because this was half of just a neighborhood normal bike shop, but there were some bike racer guys that had been managing it for a while, and they loved the smaller brands. And we were able to get accounts with any of the frame importers of the time. So a big portion of this little store was the super cool stuff, you know.
Yeah.
We were building, DeRosa's, and Eddie Merckx and all, all these incredible brands at that time and selling them into this small community. So it was a really, really cool thing for a kid that age to experience and understand and learn about all those brands and the passion. And it was a really cool moment. You know, I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that says a lot about you as a kid, right? That you're able to secure a loan for a shop.
I
I
use the
mean,
bike shop as collateral, you know.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
And
but
don't get me wrong, I stressed the banker out plenty, you
oh,
know.
okay.
But it was a small community, small store. I mean, a bike shop in this community in those days was, grossing 250,000 dollars a year, and so
Got
it
it.
wasn't a crazy, thing. However, I made it 19 years in bike retail. I tried to make it 20, but I couldn't do it anymore. And and over the course of that 20-year period, we went through all the big brands and all the expansion and multi-store, and we grew as big as we possibly could grow inside of a state like Arkansas. You know, and through that, I learned that if I was going to have a family and kind of grow beyond the means that that store would do, I would have to kind of either expand outside of Arkansas or move some other way into the industry.
Hmm.
It wasn't going to pay for the lifestyle that I needed to from a small Arkansas based shop at that time.
Right. So when did you sell it or you sold the store?
I ended up taking in working partners, and then I
Okay.
sold my shares to those working partners. And then I think 2 or 3 years later, they went into, well, maybe longer than that. They went in, eventually turned it into a Trek store, and it lives on today as Trek of Little Rock.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And what just in one location or multiple
At one
locations?
point, we had two locations.
Hmm.
And the second location, I had helped two of our best employees kind of open their own shop. We became partners in this thing.
Yeah.
And those two clever dudes are the guys that built competitive cyclists out the back door of it.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Oh
Cool.
yeah. And I remember, I mean, this was there was no eBay, there was no, internet advertising. They were selling this stuff in like chat rooms and all these different things. And they had my store name on the front, Chain Wheel, and then
Yeah.
they started their business called bikeseller.com out the back of it. You know,
Wow.
backdoor price had different pricing than the front door price. And I got all
Ah.
upset, and we brought in all these, friends of ours that were lawyers because we were super pissed at each other, and I made the brilliant decision to part ways with them for like $9,000. And they turned around, and within like 3 years, they had built it into competitive cyclists, and we're just
Oh.
killing it. I'm like, oh, I guess that did work.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my
But I
gosh.
was old school retail. It was front door. You took
Yeah,
care of your
right.
people, man. You had one price. You didn't do that.
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't see that. That coming. But they did. They did.
Man, that was so I've been out of retail a long time, but that era when it just started happening was kind of towards the end of my retail. And it was so difficult to manage your loyal, what used to be a loyal customer that came to you for everything. And then all of a sudden they're showing up with boxes of stuff. Hey, can you put this on my bike?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so hard not to
Yeah. I
get
checked out
angry.
of retail before that moment,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really tough,
and I don't know how I would have dealt with it.
Yeah.
That was hard. That's a hard transition because it was hard to not take it personal. And it took a long time, at least for me, to not take that as a personal strike against you. You just
Yeah.
Yeah.
had to, you just have to adapt because it's clearly not going away.
Well, and I think that Chris managed it better than anybody that I've ever worked with in terms of, working with his clients. I was there one time, watched him go online and help the customer pick out the right part because, front derailleurs can be complicated or whatever,
Yes, they can.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, he was just, he had just made it like this real positive thing with the customer, even though, he's basically eating it on the potential sale. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely it was cool to see that, but at the same time, it kind of hurt a little bit too, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it hurt Chris as a retailer.
It stings for sure. It definitely will sting, but
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, the industry's changing, the world's changing, and either you adapt or you're left behind.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I still see it, it today in some of this, I call them micro retailers, but the stores where the owner's always present, they're not controlled by any vendors. They sell service, they sell expertise.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily trying to sell you a bike off the floor. I mean, those guys can build a really loyal following, and people
Yeah.
will really buy everything that they can through those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
There's
there's not enough of them there yet. But I think that army is slowly building.
Yeah.
I think the
yeah.
true independent. I hope that the true independent retailer is what emerges, on the other side of all this chaos.
Yeah, I think
So
I think there will be more with the proliferation of these company-owned stores. Uh, there's people that will just go to that and they're happy with it, but it's going to give, I think, more possibilities to that type of store having success. Because the
Yeah,
niche
the people that
stores,
I know that are getting into retail now or talking about getting in, they're talking about being truly independent.
yeah,
I don't think anybody's getting into retail now to be the next concept store. You know,
yeah,
and truly independent stores in major markets. I'd love to see. I mean, those are wonderful environments. Places that customers wanted to go into every week just to see what in the hell was going on in the stores, what was new. You know, and
yeah,
and 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 that's how when I had my store, that's how I built my environment. Because every Saturday, everybody who was into cycling had to come in there just to see what was going out of that store. What the
yeah,
build was. What the new widget was.
yeah,
I hope that some version of that is what comes back after all this chaos. I see
yeah.
I see it in a lot of corners of the world happening right now,
Oh,
and I really not as much yet in the United States as I see it in Asia and I see it in Europe, but it's coming over here.
yeah.
yeah, there's a store in my town that's kind of still like that. Actually, funny enough, I was just in there the other day and they had a couple of Orbeas in there, so I thought
Yeah,
that was kind of funny. But they're very small. A lot of just frames. They don't stock. They don't do stocking orders, and I still just kind of drop in to just kind of like check out what's new.
check out what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. It's really, I still like that experience of going into a small shop, even if I'm not going to buy. I just like to check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, the city has a lot of that going on. In San Francisco, the stores tend to have a really unique independent vibe to them. There's one, I mean, there's above category, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they kind of set a standard that
Yep.
is, I don't know, many retail shops match what they're doing, but that's like it's really special when you go there. Even as someone who's
Yep.
entrenched in the bike industry, you go in there and
Yeah. If you're in the area, you still got to stick your head in there because you'll
yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
learn something if you do.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's very cool, but could be lost on the general public. A lot of the people, wait, with the cheapest bike in here is what, 9 grand? Is that right? You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
yeah, but
But
yeah.
even when
So,
I dropped in that shop and I still felt a little bit uncomfortable, quite honestly,
oh,
It
and
really?
can
I'm
be a
gonna,
little
yeah,
stiff in there on occasion.
yeah. I
Oh,
mean, but they're super friendly and, great guys, but just it can be a little intimidating for
yeah,
sure.
it is a little
Yeah.
intimidating. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay, well, okay. So from shop owner, 19 years of retail, and then where did you go after that with the competitive cyclist?
Well, that I didn't
Yeah,
go with that. That went another direction.
yeah,
So
that
I
was a
went into
turning
the
point.
industry. I went and did a 14-year tour of duty with Orbea. So
Oh,
I
okay,
was the
so
managing director of North and South America, and we entered into a 10-year joint venture. So after 3 or 4 years of distributing the brand, it grew to a point where they decided joint venture was the way forward because we grew it to a point where it took real capital to take it
yeah,
forward. Because we had built a U.S. dealer base of around 400 or 500 retailers and had credit accounts with all those, and the working capital requirement was real. And
yeah.
so, 10-year deal, and it matured in 2014, and then they purchased the company and took it from there.
Oh, okay,
So, and in that, 14 years, a lot of sales, a lot of marketing work, but then also a lot of product development. work as well. And that's where I found I was, you know, maybe most passionate, was listening to the market, listening to the retailers, and just from being a retailer, kind of seeing where the opportunities were. And so, we were kind of first into some areas of triathlon, first into some areas of high-end performance women's products. We were first into composite 29er mountain bike. So we were able to take some really interesting moves that emerged in the US, but then globally became really important to Orbea. And on my exit from Orbea, I had I had a non-compete for a year or two, and so I ended up taking a job in Southern California with a group of guys that had come from golf and been making carbon fiber golf shafts forever. That thought that they could put together a team to build a carbon fiber bicycle manufacturing facility in just outside of San Diego in Rancho Bernardo. And I'm like, yeah, if you guys are really planning to do that, I'll take that job, because that sounded perfect.
Yeah.
Because I was really passionate about, uh, from that moment, really passionate about trying to reshore manufacturing to the States. Because I've told this story a few times, but it's probably a little bit important here. In my time at Orbea is when, carbon fiber came into the industry, and basically it took out all the factories. All the Western factories had no idea what in the hell carbon fiber was, or how to produce it or how to design it. And there was no one had any time to sit there and figure it out. And so, Asia said, okay, we got it. We'll produce for you. And so everybody just did that. And that's where all performance bike went. And so, all the traditional American and European bike factories were metal shops, which became useless, when carbon fiber hit. And all these things came down. And so from that time in California, that's when I got a real understanding of what it took to manufacture carbon fiber, where the challenges are, where the hot spots are. And I've been focused on that kind of work ever since that moment.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I remember, we were, when I was in retail, we were a Kestrel dealer. And I know that they were making their bikes in Watsonville initially. I don't know.
Their first bikes were made in Arkansas.
No kidding.
Oh,
So
wow.
Brent Trimble, who was
Yeah.
basically the genesis of it all,
Yeah.
his original shop is in Berryville, Arkansas, which is
Whoa.
just outside the middle of nowhere. He did all that work, and then he met up with Preston and a few of the other guys that brought Kestrel into it. And they those guys changed the world. They changed the bike industry for sure.
Man, did they
Yeah.
ever?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I remember we had,
You ought to get Brent Trimble on here.
oh, that'd be amazing.
He's an
Yeah.
interesting duck, but
I'm writing it
man, I
down
bet
right
he has
now.
some incredible stories to tell.
Yeah.
And I can maybe dig up his email address for you. From what I can tell, he spends about half his time in Arkansas and half in Hawaii.
Ah,
He did.
that's not too
He started
bad.
it all.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't start it all, but he started the monocoque, American version of carbon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Our shop actually sold Trimble mountain bikes.
Yeah,
I think we
with the
sold,
big boom tube.
yeah. Oh, it was a wild looking bike. And,
Yeah, he's got a small museum of that stuff in his old factory in Arkansas.
oh
I
man.
was up there, I don't know, 10 years ago, right when I'd started Allied. He said, "You got to come up here. We need to talk." I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. It was fascinating.
Yeah. I remember the first Kestrel came to our shop and it wasn't Brent, but there was a sales rep and then somebody from manufacturing. And they had a prototype that had a glove box. They called it a glove box on the down tube, and it had like this little knob on it, and it was hinged.
Yeah.
And I just remember like just my growing up in the industry, it was just blew my mind, that wait a minute, you have a hole in the frame and this is okay. This works, Yeah. It was such a
They should have
weird,
patented that little thing back then.
yeah, seriously,
Yeah.
all these years later now all the brands are doing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, what a wild time that was.
Yeah.
Um But okay, so you brought up something else there, Allied, and
Yeah. So after my project in Southern California uh, dissolved,
yeah,
then I had learned that the Guru factory in Montreal was closing and going to auction. And so put together a small group of people and got some Arkansas State support and went up there and bought the factory and brought it down here and built HIA Velo. And that was a project that, I was trying to take my learnings from what I'd done in California. And we essentially brought in development talent that had been very involved in the Asian manufacturing methods of prepreg. And we
okay,
spent 3 years here, turning that into a scalable factory. And I guess in late 2018, the Walton Group that owns Rafa acquired the company and moved it to Northwest Arkansas, where they have it today.
okay,
Yeah, that was a
yeah,
fascinating project. Got a really good understanding of prepreg technology, where the challenges are to scale that in a high labor cost environment.
hmm
Super rewarding project. I
yeah,
mean, amazing, and super proud of what they built it into today.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is really cool. I do have a couple of retailers that have had the bikes through. They don't stock them necessarily. It's more of a special order, but the bikes
Yeah,
are
I mean,
beautiful. Yeah.
brands like that typically don't floor a lot of bikes.
Hmm.
You know, when
Yeah.
you're a factory, you can do a lot more colors. You can change things up immediately. When you're a big brand and you're buying product 2 years in advance and it all comes in red and it's got a
Yeah.
year model attached to it, you got to stock the stores and get that stuff out. But when you're a factory and you have a dealer base that's attached to it, anything's possible.
Yeah.
And the micro retailers, the super specialty retailers, most of them really appreciate that.
Oh, for sure. I know
You
the
can
Wow.
go
cost.
in and get the specialized in these two colors, but if you get a Allied or a Time or a Factor or any of these other things where people are really factories behind it, the options are almost limitless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily custom, but almost. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Time has a lot of color options. I was checking that
you
out.
do when you have your own paint department. You know,
Yeah.
if color's not working for sales, change it Tuesday. Add a new one.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't piss off our retailers because they're not stocking all the colors anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of my retailers just want to sell the customer the right bike, whatever they
Hmm.
want. So the more options that I can give those retailers, the better it is for them. You know, the more
Yeah.
they can compete against the brands that can't do that. You know,
Right.
and paint's hard. Paint's one of the hardest parts of high-end bicycle manufacturing. To have that at scale it takes forever.
Yeah.
You know, you can start with all the money in the world, but if you've not spent 5+ years painting carbon fiber bikes at scale, just it's painful.
Right.
It takes a
Yeah.
long time to do it. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
then
had the
and
opportunity.
then we sell in a category where if there's the tiniest little anything,
Uh-huh.
they're like, oh, that's not 1,000% perfect. You know,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the opportunity to tour Giants factory in Taiwan and to watch, how they laid up the carbon and, where
yeah,
different department where they're sanding it or they're painting it. And yeah, I mean, it would just take, it would take a huge effort, obviously, to make a change in color
yeah.
and something
I
like
mean,
Yeah.
that.
it's a
Well,
big deal. Yeah,
in
I'm a
my
big fan of Giant. I mean, those guys have always done it the right way. Um,
yeah.
I think I was the third or the fourth retailer in North America for Giant.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we saw it early, and I'm like we got to get on this quick. And yeah, we became a big Giant retailer. And when this is was right around the time that the Clintons, a couple of years before the Clintons started out for the presidency.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
I had sold Bill and Hillary bikes, and they were giants. and 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 Tony Lowe found out about it.
Oh
And
boy.
so, like 2 weeks later, Tony Lowe and everybody is in my little store in Little Rock, Arkansas, with their advertising agency. We did this. It was in all the bike magazines, and it was the opening cover three-fold, centerfold type thing. When the cover would come out three ways, and it was me and my partner at that time, Pat Barron, great guy, and a cardboard cutout of Hillary with her giant butte.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
awesome.
Yeah, that is hilarious.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. What a cool story.
I've got that framed somewhere. I got to find that thing. It's a great shot.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's classic Giant too. It's like Chris has a little experience similar to this, right? Where uh, he sold a bike to Robin Williams. This is unbelievable. So Chris sells a bike to Robin Williams. He sold multiple bikes to Robin, and
He
Robin
sold an Orbea to Robin as well.
he
That was
did.
that was the first Robin Williams sale that kind of sparked it all.
Yeah.
Euskaltel, Euskadi, Starship. That
Yes.
bike was in
Yeah.
the auction of his bikes when he passed. I tried to
Oh,
buy
wow.
that bike back.
Oh,
Somebody
man.
clearly wanted it a lot more than I did.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
God.
but Chris had this photo, anytime you deal with somebody like Robin, there's probably layers of, approvals that have to take place for a photo anyway. So Chris got a photo with Robin with one of our and what was it, 100th anniversary of the
100th anniversary. It
of the
had, yeah, it was all
yeah, the
gold.
Tour de France. And so anyway, we only brought 10 of them into the United States. Robin got one of them. Chris gets this picture of him and Robin and the bike, and he gave it to me and he said, whatever, this cannot be used. I'm sharing this with you, but this cannot be used by Giant or anybody else because we don't have approval to do it. And I was like, okay.
Yep.
So and so I shared it with people at Giant, and I put in big red letters like this photo is for internal use only, cannot be used. And then, like, I don't know, like a month later, it's in our sales flyer. It's like, what is happening?
Right. And it's like,
yeah,
it says like Mork buys a bike. It's like, what?
yeah, more.
More possible. Chris, as you recall, we got in trouble for that with Orbea as well.
Oh, did you really?
Did you guys? I can't remember.
No,
but I remember,
and you were involved in it. You were
yeah.
involved. It ended up getting into somebody's hands in Australia. This picture of Robin and his
Oh, that's
Orbea,
right.
Oh,
and the guy
man.
put it in the magazine, and everybody got upset about it. I don't know if
Yeah.
Robin got upset about it, but everybody around the whole situation got upset.
Right.
Yeah, I did. I remember I did have to call Robin. I wanted to call Robin like, hey, I just want to let you know. And usually when I would talk to him or see him, he's, he would have been, like you would imagine, like jovial and laughing and joking. But he was just this super serious guy on the phone. He's just like, okay, I'm going to let my people know. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you take somebody like Robin with such a brilliant career and all the different things that he was able to do, and then to just use some TV character, maybe a role that, I mean, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
it's so disrespectful even,
Right.
to say Mork rides a giant or whatever.
Right.
Unreal.
Yeah. No,
But anyway.
he was pretty cool about it. Yeah. Yeah. I remember because that's when we'd first become an Orbea dealer.
Yes.
It
And
was pretty early on.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I know, wow, God, the national sales manager for Orbea at the time, I forget his name at the moment, but he was showing it to Tony Tom in Sausalito. And so Robin,
John Bradley.
John Bradley, that's right. And Robin happened to walk into the shop, but Tony wasn't selling him at the time. So he had referred him to us for the pickup. So it was just like, it fell into our laps. It was so cool. Just such a cool moment.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. And he
we
also
sold some Orbeas to some cool folks. I mean, we sold them to Alicia Keys, I was told, bought one.
Wow.
This is one of my favorites. Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Yeah, how
hell
cool is
yes.
that?
Hell
You know?
yes. That is super cool.
I was on a flight once from LA to Aspen, and I got upgraded, and the seat next to me was empty. And at the very last second, this big, tall, blonde woman comes in the plane, and it's Melanie Griffin.
Ah,
And so, she's super chatty on the plane, and we're talking about her husband Antonio, and she goes, "By the way, my husband has one of your bikes." You know,
oh,
because he had bought a couple of different special edition Orbeas.
yeah.
Yeah, those were always fun moments when you get a celebrity like that to
Oh,
buy a
yeah.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd also sold an Orbea to a cast member from the Fast and the Furious, the first edition. And I'm trying to remember his name, but
Well,
he'd come up from LA and got an Ordu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
nice. Well, okay. So Orbea, we sold a fair amount of bikes to celebrities with Orbea. How about with time?
Um, Trying to think through. I mean, nothing of that level that I could pull out.
Sure.
We've only owned the company now for a little over 4 years.
Yeah. It was
We
2021, right? February
yeah
2021. Yeah.
yeah February. Yeah, I guess privately we did it late 20, and then we really took kind of public ownership of it in 21. Um, it's been an amazing ride so far. I mean, it has been incredible. Because I went in search of, after my time with Allied, I went in search of a composite factory that was already operational. Because having been in two companies and trying to start factories in fresh environments, I knew how long and how hard and how capital intensive that is.
Yeah.
And so we found ourselves with the opportunity of acquiring the Time factory. And through the process, we were able to acquire the bicycle brand and the factory. And, we split it up at that time where SRAM took the pedals and the shoe business because they wanted to incorporate that into their range.
Hmm.
And the factory that we have acquired has been operational for a little over 20 years. And it's been the second factory for Time for most of that time. You know, in fact, it was the factory that was really producing a lot of the forks in kind of the boom of carbon fiber forks. If you remember that
Right.
moment where every Marco Pantani,
Yeah.
Bianchi, or every Mario Cipollini Cannondale had a Time fork on it. Well,
Right.
that's how this factory in Slovakia was born, because that was no longer a niche product that went into mass production rapidly. You know, and at
Yeah.
one point, Time was producing 80, 90,000 forks a year, and it was
Whoa.
a pretty good sized
Wow.
business.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And so this factory is in Slovakia, but it's a little less than a 1 hour drive from Vienna, Austria. It's just across the Danube and just north of Bratislava, and it's in a kind of a very quaint little village, about 10 kilometers away from the big Audi and Volkswagen factory in Slovakia. So
Okay.
anything that's on like the Audi Q5 platform, Q7 platform, any of the cars on that platform come out of the exact same region of the Time factory is. So it's a very industrial, manufacturing area in Central Europe.
All right. So
Yeah, did
are you still sorry, Chris, are you
That's
still
okay.
using that factory? Because
Oh yeah,
oh, you are.
that factory is our everything right now.
Oh, it
That's
is.
that's where all of our IP is based. We've got a labor force there that has been in place a long time. Almost half of our staff there has been in the factory for more than 10 years.
Wow.
So I mean it's our everything right now. And what we're doing now is we're adding a second factory into South Carolina, and we're taking some of the processes from our Slovakian factory and bringing them in. But we've also engaged in a pretty big development project with state of South Carolina and Clemson University and the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany to advance some of the production capabilities of time. Still resin transfer molding, which is the core technology of time. But these other groups have advanced it significantly for the auto and aerospace industry. They've taken that tech and they have just taken it to an entirely new. So now thing
Well,
That's not just me.
no.
I think we lost you, Tony.
We lost you. Hopefully he can still hear us. I don't know.
He's just frozen there.
Dang it. It's just getting juicy too.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I was really interested in hearing that. Oh, yeah.
there he comes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, one of the I mean it's just cool that he's trying to do a lot of this stuff in the United States,
Yeah.
with Allied and then now with Time. These are like quality jobs in the bike business
I'm
that
just
he
so
created.
impressed I'm so impressed to hear, Tony start from the bike shop and how he acquired the bike shop and then, these launches that he's done are just, I mean, those aren't small moves. Those are
Yeah,
big. Those
right.
are big moves, and
Yeah,
kudos to him. I mean, that's also a brave move.
right. Yeah, I was thinking when he was explaining how 19 years of retail and then national sales manager for Orbea and then to owning the US distribution. It's like these are
Yeah,
huge leaps,
right.
you know? Yeah.
Right. Well, I
So,
know like when we first became an Orbea dealer, like we called them up and like Tony answers the phone, right?
right.
Like when I became a Giant dealer, I wasn't going to call Giant and Tony Lowe's not going to answer the
All
phone,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
So, right. It's like, Tony answers the phone and, we talked to Tony about our interest in carrying Orbea and Tony sends us two frames like, hey guys, check them out, build them up, ride them, see what you think.
Right.
And so we were able to build them up and ride them and, you know,
I remember that
yeah.
happening in real time. I was
He's
like,
like,
wait, what?
oh.
They're sending you free frames? What is happening here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that just goes to show, how how bold Tony is, and he's making good moves,
Right. Right.
and
Well, and he knew he had something, to his point, it's like he'd find the retailer that could really get behind the brand that was,
right,
and he would just invest in them.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said earlier, like the timing too, because Orbea kind of came around when, that when Lance Armstrong was kind of becoming this thing. Carbon fiber, like carbon fiber frames weren't really a thing when they started, but as they were rising up, carbon became much more popular.
Yeah.
And then so they just kind of rode, kind of like we did at retail too. We just kind of rode this wave, with Orbea. So like our growth was, followed along the lines with Orbea as well, I felt.
Yeah. You're back.
I'm
Can you hear it?
back. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Oh,
not
okay.
sure what happened. I heard part of your conversation while I was off. Thanks for
Oh,
that.
okay.
No, but that some people ask me sometimes, why are you doing this type of work? What drives you to do it? And and two ways I've answered that before. One is it broke my heart when I saw all the factories close. You know,
Yeah.
especially when I was inside Orbea and the shift to carbon fiber came, and you went from a huge workforce making aluminum and steel bikes, and all those factories like that across Europe. I mean, they all evaporated, and all those jobs just went nowhere. You know,
Hmm.
and there was nothing else for those workers to do. There's nothing else for it was just over. And I saw it all in America, and I saw it all through France and all through Germany, everywhere. And like and then I mean, I'm just a huge believer that this country needs to start manufacturing again.
Yeah.
Right.
When I see high profile bike brands taking carbon fiber structures out of countries that have the lowest possible labor rate that they can possibly find and multiplying that cost by 10x or 15x and selling them in the market, when all these factories closed and those people lost their jobs, it just disgusts me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And when I see these fancy videos of certain European brands painting bikes in a facility in Europe, and they try to say that's manufacturing, it
Right.
just enrages me. You know,
Yeah.
you can't take a $350 structure out of Myanmar in Cambodia, put a
Yeah.
fancy paint job on it, and multiply it times 15, of the factory cost. That's
Right.
just not right, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been
And
to Europe. We've been to Europe and seen that at a brand's BMP, and you see it's kind of like a dog and pony show for the retailer. When you go in, you're just like, there's no way there's manufacturing happening here.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I take a lot of tours, and I've seen a lot of paint booths, you know,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and when we started Allied, now it's like this is what we're going to try to. When we started HIA Vela, this is what we're going to try to break down. We're going to show the faces of the workers. We called it the dirty finger images,
Yeah.
to show American workers really making this stuff, and that's what really helped launch that Allied. I mean, people are like, hell yes, do more
Yeah.
of that, you know.
Yeah.
And now we're attempting to do the same thing with the Time brand, although it's always been made in Europe. They never really took that approach. What's precious about the Time brand is he is the one guy, the only guy who never went to Asia and did that.
Yeah.
He always took this other path. He goes, I have a better technology. I'm going to figure it out myself, and I'm always going to do it inside of Europe. You know,
Yeah.
and he had a hard, Roland Catan had a hard time running Time all those years because it took a lot of people and a lot of money and a lot of risk, but he stuck it out,
Yeah.
and so
Well,
to me it's kind of like a little gem, because he did that.
right. And Tony, I've done a lot of, I've been with Giant for 22 years and I've done a lot of clinics. And Time is always singled out in our clinics as an authentic manufacturer of bicycles.
That our
Whereas,
main goal is not to mess that up,
yeah,
because they always did it.
yeah,
I mean, when I take people on tours of our factory all the time, and I'm honest, and I was like, the only thing that we don't make on this bike is the seat clamp, and I'm working on it.
yeah,
I mean, we make our dropouts there. We make everything there.
yeah,
And people are
Wow.
like amazed when they see that.
yeah, yeah.
Did,
Well, that's a big part of our story at Giant, right? Is,
Yeah, you're the real deal. I
farm
mean,
to
you're
table.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But
right,
Time
right.
And
also.
what Giant is totally inspirational to me. You know,
Yeah,
and and
yeah,
and I love Giant from the bottom of my heart because of that. They always do it. They do it great. You know,
yeah,
and to me, if I look forward, 20 years in the bike industry, Giant's a lot bigger than it is today. Because of that.
yeah,
Right.
How are these other brands able to survive in a market like this when they're essentially buying from factories that are competing?
yeah,
And I'm not just talking Giant. Now I'm talking everybody, because now every Asian factory is launching their own brands.
yeah,
Every
Oh
one of them,
yeah.
and they're deploying them like crazy this year.
yeah,
That's going to be the story of 2025. Is how the market deals with that.
yeah. Well, one of the things Chris and I were talking about while you were gone, is this U.S. manufacturing, and that's it's a consistent thread, from San Diego to Allied to now Time, and I remember there was a time where we sponsored North Star, so mountain bike to ski
Yeah,
village basically, but they did
yeah,
mountain biking in the summer, and Giant sponsored them, and we had a dealer event there, and Tony Lowe was there, and
yeah.
it gave a great speech, and then opened it up to our retailers, and one of the retailers asked him, is there ever a time where Giant might consider manufacturing bikes in the United States? And so Tony answered it with, you know, he didn't really commit, but he just said, if there was ever a time, he says, we have a philosophy of doing it all ourselves, and doing it where in Taiwan, where there's all the supporting agencies around it, it makes the most sense for us to do it there. But if there was ever an opportunity where it made sense to do it in the United States, maybe with these tariffs and whatnot, maybe, I mean, I don't know, the tariffs would have to get pretty radical, I think, to force some of these companies to look at the United States. But you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
You've done it with Allied, you're doing it with Time, and that's something that should be applauded. And those of us who spent the life in the bike industry, it's great to see somebody investing in the United States, manufacturing and creating high quality jobs in the bike industry. And
Definitely.
Thank you.
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
it's very stressful. It's a lot of work,
yeah,
but we're going to get it accomplished. I
yeah,
mean, in this project with Time, I'm really thankful for the support that I'm getting out of the state of South Carolina for manufacturing. They have they have brought us into uh, a group of companies that is so helpful to being able to really do something at very high quality and very high scale competitively in the United States.
yeah.
And I hope that in the middle of this 2025, we're able to start releasing first products from that.
Okay.
They've been great for that. I mean, the technology's here. You know, what I do know is the normal methods of pre-preg carbon fiber manufacturing in Asia will never work in the United States.
Hmm.
I'm not speaking about Giant here. Giant has their own process. It's nicely automated. But I'm talking about everybody else that's doing hand layup of pre-preg fibers and bladder molding. There are two areas in the manufacturing of that are simply black holes of time. And you can't deal with that when you're dealing with $25 an hour US labor rate.
Sure.
When you can do it in places like Myanmar for less than $2 an hour. You know,
Right.
and the layup process is one, the preforming process. But the other one that's even more challenging is after it is molded to get it into a state where you can paint it. You know, those are two very hand labor intensive moments that I guarantee you no one will crack that inside the United States. They may crack it in South Mexico, but
Hmm.
they won't crack it in the United States. So to do it in the United States, you've got to have a different preforming path and a different, sanding and paint preparation path. And so what we are focused on for this is a technology called high pressure RTM, HPRTM. And that's a form of resin transfer molding that the auto industry has used for a long time and very similar to ours, but extremely high pressure, which means much more expensive machinery, much more expensive tooling. But what you can get out of the tool is something that is nearly ready for commercial usage. It's
Wow.
it's the surface quality is almost like glass out of the tool, and that's what we've been spending a ton of time in the last year and a half developing that technology.
Okay.
And when we do that, then we will be able to cut out a reasonable amount of man hours so we can truly afford the American manufacturing rate and be competitive against Asia, especially when we have these tariffs in place. You know,
Yeah.
but these tariffs are only for Chinese production. You know,
Right.
most carbon fiber, as you probably know now, is coming out of Taiwan or Vietnam or Cambodia and Myanmar and these places.
Right.
There are some still in China, and they have to get out. They have to exit because that is now mathematically not possible.
Yeah.
And the industry is a bit alarmed with the rulings that if you manufacture a frame in China and you send it to Taiwan for assembly and you import it into the United States, the U.S. government says that's a Chinese made bike, not a Taiwanese made bike. Where the
Wow.
frame is actually made is the country of origin for a bicycle. So got to get out of China now.
Right.
Or if you're doing Chinese production, you now have to assemble the bike and paint the bike in the United States. That is also something that is in play right now significantly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Because I know there's other brands that, just kind of do the finishing work and then they say, made in Italy.
That works in Europe, you know.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But now if you take a Chinese made frame into Italy and you assemble an Italian bicycle with it and you bring that bicycle into America, by law, it must say made in China.
Ah.
Now we'll see if they do that.
Right. I was going to
Right.
say, yeah, that could be detrimental to some brands.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if your frame's made in China, you can't assemble it anywhere else and say it's not a Chinese bike.
Well,
Only for American sales, though.
when I worked prior to working for Giant, I worked for GT, and GT would import frames and then build the bike in Santa Ana, and the bike would have a sticker on it that said "hand built in the USA," and they were able to do that because it was assembled in the United States. Which is it was just a little misleading.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of games that are played in that country of origin. So
I think you'll see those games change a lot in the next 12 months.
yeah, yeah. So you mentioned partnership with Clemson, and then there was a German company,
Yeah, Fraunhofer. So
Fraunhofer.
Fraunhofer is it's a German engineering and development institution. They have 70 different campuses in Germany.
Wow.
And each campus specializes in certain aspects of advanced manufacturing. And South Carolina is where the largest BMW factory is in the world. So there's a big connection between German companies, German development, and actual manufacturing for North America in South Carolina.
Interesting.
So, and there are grants available to companies that are relocating into the state for production, but they can take development benefit from Fraunhofer. And so we're now in our second grant of that development, and we'll be producing first rideable product with their technologies, hopefully by March of this year.
Wow.
Unbelievable technologies that Fraunhofer has. I mean, absolutely top-notch, engineering, especially in composites.
Did that relationship get established just organically because you're near the BMW factory, or?
Southern Germany is just incredible for the technology that exists there because of the auto industry. Did I lose you guys again?
Yeah, you cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, but we got you back. So I was asking, did that relationship, did it happen because of your proximity to the BMW factory and the fact that you're going into South Carolina to build manufacturing?
In the process of being courted by the state of South Carolina, they introduced us to these different entities that have programs for companies just like us, because that's a state where they want manufacturing jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And especially they want, European companies basing manufacturing in South Carolina. There's because of BMW, there's some 250 different German companies with their North American headquarters in the upstate of South Carolina.
Whoa.
And so there's lots of programs for more of that, and we happen to check all the boxes.
Yeah. Do you see bike industry potential for South Carolina beyond time?
Yes, I mean we're involved in another state project right now that is working to essentially replicate the Portugal Bicycle Valley in the state of South Carolina.
Oh,
We see, with everybody who's taking frames out of China, they can no longer bring bikes into the United States, and so they need painting and assembly and fulfillment services in North America, and that's how
yeah.
Portugal started. But then they started assembling so many bicycles there that other members of the supply chain had to get close to it. So
Hmm.
then wheel building companies come in and crank companies come in, saddles and handlebar, all these things clustered around it. And now in Portugal, there's 45 plus companies. And so we're working right now to attract a few of them into North America to be able to satisfy this need that now every bicycle company selling in America has no solution for.
Got it.
And it's a great state for it because they've got ports. You've got 12 to 14-day boat service between South Carolina and Europe. So you
Wow.
can really move things around very efficiently. And it's a state where there's a good labor force and they want this type of work in the state. They're investing in, it's not just high performance bicycle. It's morphed into soft mobility at this point. You know,
Okay.
it's all things two wheel. You know,
Got it.
but yeah, you'll see a
Wow.
lot of interesting announcements come out of South Carolina in the next 60 to 90 days because the game's on. I mean, the tariff started January 14th
Hmm.
of 2024. And most people were over inventoried anyway. So the market doesn't feel it yet because they're
Right.
still selling off 2022 inventory, right? But as these next shipments start coming in, they're painful. And all these companies have to look for a shift in where they're doing their assembly work. And it's going to shift back here rapidly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is encouraging. I know we've been joking that this tariff could really help out the bike industry short term because
I
we're
mean, it's
loaded with
it's
all this dead
exactly what
inventory.
Europe did 10 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
this is people like over here are so shocked about it. If you go to Europe, there are bike factories everywhere, you know?
Hmm.
The little country of Portugal assembled 2.9 million bicycles last year.
Yeah.
They have
Wow.
45 very large companies based there making bicycles. They employ tens of thousands of people in good bike industry jobs. You
Yeah.
know, it's going to be great. It's going to be great for this market. And those
Hmm.
that are scared of it are simply don't want to change their supply chain, and they should have done it 5 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, man, you get me fired up.
I
no,
know.
I mean, if you really think about it, it's just, I mean, our industry, there's a bunch of dinosaurs in our industry that just don't want to change, you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
these are the same people that took the decision to shut down these factories and send it back over there. And they don't want to bring it back, you know?
Right.
But now they have to.
Well, like when you bring up Portugal, I think that a lot of people, when they think of manufacturing in Portugal, they're just thinking of inexpensive labor, right? That the reason why
Yep.
they're able to do it is because they don't
Well,
have
yeah,
good
but the
labor
same thing's
laws.
going to be here. I mean, you can't do these bicycle assembly facilities in Northern California. You know,
Yeah.
you
Right.
have to put them in regions where you have good workforces that are competitive. You know, same
Yeah.
reason why our carbon fiber project in San Diego didn't work out. Mathematically impossible because so expensive for a facility there,
Yeah.
so expensive for the people there. You can't compete globally. So,
Right.
that's why the auto industry is largely through the Southeast. You got the
Yeah.
workforce there, you got a reasonable labor rate, and you have states and governments that want it there because it's much better jobs than working at Bojangles or Starbucks, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where, and so it's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if I did my research right, you're also involved in another uh, U.S. bike company. Is that right? Detroit Bikes? Or is
We
that?
sold it
Oh, you did.
quietly
Okay.
about 6 months ago. We bought it right at the crazy moment of the pandemic.
Hmm.
And that particular category went from impossible to get to 10 years of inventory everywhere.
Yeah.
Whoops, not the best timing. Okay.
Yeah.
So we sold it to a group of people that have been now pivoting the business into doing e-bike assembly and last mile fulfillment. So
Okay.
they're using that infrastructure for something very valuable.
Yeah.
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 We're
Because
focused just on carbon fiber manufacturing for time, and then we're focused on this Portugal project into the United States.
yeah. Yeah. When I first heard of Detroit Bikes, I was thinking, oh man, that's so cool because Detroit, all the empty
Oh
factories
man,
and
Detroit's
everything.
so cool.
Yeah.
They're so cool, and that project is so cool. But at the end of the day, doing that type of work in America for steel, it it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You
Yeah.
know, when you get to higher price categories or something that requires more technology, it definitely makes sense. But when you're, so hydroformed aluminum, that kind of technology will make sense in the United States. But just, normal cutting and welding of steel and alloy tubes for the bike business, you're taking frames. You could take frames out of Asia for $15. And even
Right.
if they tariff it 300%, so what? You know,
Right.
and so there was no long term way of creating real value there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But it was a beautiful project.
the Bicycle Valley in South Carolina sounds really promising.
It
Yeah,
does. I mean,
yeah.
it's absolutely going to happen, and I don't think the West Coast. I don't think the industry can afford it to be on the West Coast. Although it makes a lot of sense being on the West Coast because of port access
Yeah.
from Asia, but I think the East Coast and connecting it to Europe, and especially the Southeast, is poised to really grab that.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's talk about time a little bit and where are these bikes sold? You have it's exclusively through independent specialty retailers. Is that
No, we're
safe to
multi-channel,
say?
so
Okay.
about a third of our units go to distributors.
Okay.
We sell a lot of bikes in Asia because Asians really appreciate European-made goods, and it's been a
Mhm.
strong market historically for time. In Europe, we sell about half of our countries are distribution markets. The other half we do direct sales to the bike stores. And then in the USA, we do both direct to dealer and we do online sales. So we're pure online channel here in the United States.
Okay. Yeah. And it's just frame sets at this point, or are you doing complete bikes?
In the
Or
United States, we sell frames or complete bikes.
oh, okay.
In Europe, in our distribution markets, we're frame set only right now. But we're evolving, and now that we're coming through some of the craziness in the category, we'll start evolving it into more rolling chassis sales and some complete bike sales in Europe. But
Got
when
it.
we sell to distributors, we only sell frame set units because our distribution partners typically have a component brand they're already aligned with or a wheel brand. So we let them deal with it in their own market.
All
Hmm.
right.
I think the future of brands like ours will be more rolling chassis type sales because now that you have Shimano and SRAM selling directly to the stores and not using distributors quite as much, they've got great access to all the parts that they need. They've got good pricing on that. And so I
Hmm.
don't
Right.
I don't I don't see a lot of our B2B sales continuing as complete bikes over the next years.
Got it. Yeah, I know like at Giant, we talk a lot about you know, the bicycle as a system, and the wheels, wheel spec can really change the performance of a bicycle. So we want to engineer our wheel systems to work with our frame sets. And
Yeah, I mean I
that,
mean, if your frame set is designed with wheels and with cockpit,
yep,
and, and then you leave it to the customer to figure out their drivetrain needs, you know,
yeah,
and their
All right.
saddle and their pedal needs. And so
right.
we're evolving into that right now. The factory that we have in Slovakia was also the factory that made handlebar stems and seat posts for, I don't know, 15 years. So we have that capacity and we're working right now to redevelop that.
Yeah.
Got it.
I remember selling time early on, and when we had Eden bicycles, and that was one of the things that they'd always kind of relayed was they had that TransLink extended seat tube. They were, definitely promoting that with their fork, their extended seat tube, their stem. It's going to provide a ride feel. That what how they wanted to relay that to the client.
Yeah, and the bike just looked better because it was all kind of designed together, and when you assembled it, it just looked just right.
Yeah,
Right.
And,
yeah,
and, and so we're working to bring that. Now that the craziness of the cable integration stuff is mostly settled out, now we can really take a moment and redevelop that stuff so that it's well designed for the future. You'll see some of that stuff from us later this year.
Great.
okay,
Great.
yeah. Do
Well,
you see yourself selling the frame sets with the bar stem combo?
You know, I hope so. We'll make it either way. You know,
Hmm.
because we use the SDCR headset system, so that is as open source as it could be in this moment. So
Okay.
I think we'll transition to a lot of cockpit sales because we will paint them to match, and
Hmm.
that perfect aesthetic of a fully integrated cockpit painted to match the frame is what people really want. You know,
Yeah.
in the price categories where we're selling.
Yeah, it is interesting with the high-end client because even though the companies are really focused on, you know, doing the wheels, the bar stems, the seat post as all part of a system to build the ultimate ride characteristic. Consumer, a lot of times that's lost on the consumer, and they want to buy your bike and they want to put their wheels on it and they want to put their, whatever spar stem combo on it.
Right.
So it makes it somewhat, kind of tricky as a manufacturer, right? You want to build a bike to optimize the ride quality and the experience on the bike, but at the same time, you gotta, in a perfect world, you leave the door open for the consumer to go ahead and make the changes that they want to make to it, so that there needs to be a level
If
of
we're able to do
compatibility.
it the way that I hope we are, we'll have kind of four versions available: frame set, fuselage, which is a word that I love. That's what Klein used to call
Right.
it back in the
Yeah.
day.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then rolling chassis, so fuselage with wheels or a
Yep.
complete bike. You know,
There you
I
go.
think those are the four paths that we hope to present to the market through our next evolution here.
Yeah. So
Because
are there plans for Time to have their own wheel systems?
well, our technology is super applicable to rims, and so we are part of another project that is also inside of South Carolina. It's a joint venture project with Boyd and Nicole Johnson, who own a company called Boyd Wheels.
Oh yeah.
They purchased a company in Germany that does resin transfer molding of carbon rims. And that factory is being installed in America. Not quite operational yet, but will be operational hopefully in January. And then from that, I think some very interesting wheel possibilities will, and
Yeah.
we'll have something that we can attach to our bikes that will have exactly the same technology, and then we'll be able to match the finish and the carbon aesthetic perfectly so that it really does look like something that was perfectly designed together. And so
Wow.
we'll see that coming on board in 2025. But we have no plans of Time being a wheel brand. In fact, we will never have a Time.
Got
That's
it.
not what we're here to do. Time's a bicycle brand, and we'll keep all those components as neutral third party brands.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that when I was, you know, kind of looking at um, the acquisition of Time, I thought it was really smart to separate the bicycles from the components
Well, I
because,
mean, they never use the same factories, none of the
mhm,
same technologies. I mean, they were, you know, there was no real reason to keep them together at that point. And the pedal
yeah,
business is tough. If you're in the pedal business, you're competing against Shimano.
yeah,
That's no one wants to wake up in the morning and compete against Shimano. You know,
yeah,
and so
Right.
and I just wanted the carbon fiber piece, so it was perfect when SRAM entered the equation there. That made
right.
it possible because we were unable to do it if it was with the pedal business.
Got it. Oh, I just love it because it just makes the focus. It's just so clear what it's about now, right?
Yeah,
Time is about bicycles, and you know, uh, to your point, unless you're SRAM, you don't want Shimano as a competitor.
yeah,
But SRAM seems to be doing pretty darn good these
yeah. They're
days.
doing fine, but that's a different game.
Yes, it
Right.
is.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But
Yeah.
It is.
all right, so how many bike models are there currently, or frame models are there currently with Time?
We are down to three and growing to five in 2025.
Okay.
So we've got a gravel update that we're doing in January. And then Skylon, which is our top, aero road product, will relaunch at the middle to end of first quarter.
Okay.
And then hopefully in the middle of the year, we'll see our first product development out of South Carolina.
Oh, that's
That
exciting.
date is still
That's
not
great.
set, but it's a focus for us.
Yeah.
So by the end of 2025, we'll be 5 different models in the market, all drop bar, all performance, nothing electric. Thank
Hmm.
God we're the only company that I know of that stayed out of electric road bikes.
Yeah.
I got a lot of investor pressure on that 3 years ago, and now I'm like,
All right.
thank God I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
good move.
yeah, our plan is to stay, stay composite, stay performance, stay drop bar. We
Nice.
don't need to turn time into a brand that does everything for everybody. You know,
Right.
the company that we formed is called Cardinal Cycling Group, and that group is interested in acquiring other brands
Got it.
that we can slowly leak our carbon manufacturing technologies and production into. So
Got it.
we've been searching for like the right mountain bike brand or the right component brand. We would consider the right e-bike performance brand if it could take if our technology could be a fit for it. And we
Hmm.
hope that, in the next 2 or 3 years that we've got a very small portfolio of premium brands that we can sell together around. That's the
Yeah.
dream.
Right. Yeah, you kind of beat me to it. I was going to ask you about mountain bikes. It's been real interesting to see like Pinarello with mountain
Yeah,
bikes. All of a sudden,
man, they
it's
had a
like,
good Olympics.
yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. I was like, wow. Now we'll see if they sell any of them.
All
All
right.
Yeah.
right.
It's
I mean,
so,
it was hard. I mean, when we launched Orbea mountain bikes in America, I mean, just the idea of European mountain bikes was offensive to American mountain bikes.
All
And
right.
Orbea stuck it out. They've done. They've now proven it. It's possible. You know,
yeah,
but I think
yeah,
we're going to be very protective of the Time brand. But we do hope to acquire other brands where we can grow into other categories.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know Matt Harvey from Enduro?
I do not.
Oh, okay. He's the founder of Enduro Bearings.
Okay.
But Matt he worked for Bianchi in the early years, and I don't know if you remember the full suspension bike that was used in the Paris-Roubaix in
I
the
think.
I mean, it's going way back, but
Yeah.
but to your point, Bianchi uh, wanted suspension technology, and they had to come to Northern California, to get it, you know. So there was heavy resistance to any Euro.
Oh, it was impossible.
Yeah,
We finally broke through with Orbea when we did the first Carbon 29 hard bike.
yeah,
That's
That's what
right.
did it. Before that, zero interest. But when we had Carbon and 29 and we were first,
yep,
everybody's like, "Oh, damn it, I'll take it."
yeah,
The
yeah.
That got
Orbea
us in the
Alma.
door. The
Yeah.
Alma.
Alma. That's right.
Tony, were you involved with Orbea when they had that custom build your dream bike?
Yeah,
Uh,
I started that. That was my project.
oh
It was
man,
called Mayo.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that was really
it
clever.
was cool.
Yeah,
It was a lot of learnings from that. And so we launched a digital platform for it, but then here in Arkansas, we also built the assembly facility that had to manage all the variables of that and get everything shipped
yeah,
out. That was chaos, but we worked through it. But it was awesome because we know consumers want that.
yeah.
But what I learned through that is that the dealers didn't really want that
Hmm.
because in some ways it paralyzed inventory in the stores. And Orbea was a brand that we were doing pre-seasons, we were pushing stock in there, we were growing, and it frustrated some dealers because the consumer just knew that he could have it any way he wanted to, and it was impossible for that perfect variable to be in their store.
That's right. Yeah, the bike on the floor is never the one that goes out the door,
That's
and
right.
that's a problem for a retailer.
It
You
is,
know?
and so
Yeah.
so I'm trying to take the learnings of that for time where we're not putting too much product in any store's hands.
Yep.
So if we allow that kind of customization with what we're doing today, it helps the retailer sell. It doesn't
Hmm.
paralyze their stock so much.
Yeah.
But I think customization was a big deal for a long time, but it seems to be not as important as it was.
Mhm.
I think because of all the integration of the cockpit pieces, it's all kind of a lot of that's just going away. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it does kind of get down to drivetrains now. But,
yeah, and
even
color.
even Santa Cruz, I think suffered from this a little bit too, where they tried to get too custom. They had all these different color options, and it really hurt the retailer's stock on the floor.
Yeah, and then
So it is,
managing all the variables with your inventory is
yeah,
super tricky. If you
yeah,
just think,
yeah,
okay, I'm going to let cassette sizes go and I'm going to make them all possible. That's a freaking nightmare.
yeah,
What you have to build in your ERP system just for that is a tremendous amount of complexity. And then
yeah.
you still never have the right cassette size in stock, you know,
Right.
Right.
and the order's
So
paralyzed.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a $9,000 unit just sitting there waiting on a
Yeah,
$100 cassette or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even QBP's out of it that day. You're like,
Yeah.
damn it.
Right.
There's no winning.
Yeah,
so many SKUs.
there's definitely a
Yeah.
balancing act there for sure. It seems like the Project One uh Trek formula seems to work pretty well.
Yeah.
Uh that's probably the most successful custom
Yeah.
program going. But I know some of the smaller guys still do it. Again, with brands like the point I made about Allied, where I've seen some roll through the territory, but they're not stocked because they could customize them, or Mosaic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small
It's
brands
just
like
you
that.
can't you just if you do that level of customization, it's just impossible to really scale your company
Yeah.
because in your sales process, you spend all your time talking about the perfect shade of pink and not about selling the bicycle. you know, and you have to build efficient sales processes and have people out there that can can take their own decisions and move it along. And,
Yeah.
and with super customization like some of these smaller guys offer, it's fine if you're going to do 1,000 units a year. You can offer that service, but if you're going to take it to 5 or 10,000, a lot of those behaviors have to go away.
Yeah.
You can do one super cool custom paint job a day, or you could do 25 of the production paint job. You know, it's a
Yeah.
totally different company.
Right.
Right. Well, why when we lost you, Chris and I were talking about your ascension to with Orbea, and I kind of want to go back to that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you left bicycle retail, and then you just jumped to Orbea. Was
Well,
it?
I had done a little bit of importing and exporting in my last couple of years of bicycle retail.
Oh,
We
okay.
we we built our shop pretty big, and so we could take a little bit of risk here and there, trying out certain brands, bringing it in, learning the game of importing and customs and duties and all that stuff. So I didn't go into it cold, um,
Okay.
but yeah, it was a strange moment. I think even the Basque guys, when they were looking at me, they thought that I was crazy and that he'll help us and then we'll just take this thing back in 6 months. But it didn't play out that way because the the thing that I knew well at that moment is I knew what the North American retailer desperately wanted. They
Hmm.
needed different, they needed European, they needed colorful, they needed the prices to be right in line with the big boys. They needed margins to be maybe slightly better because a little bit unknown brand. And so we built, a year one dealer program, and we went to Interbike with it. And Orbea sent over an old trade show booth that was a couple years old, and we had 15, 20 bikes in there, and we hadn't even printed our business cards yet. We were
Wow.
just going to Interbike just to say, hey, here's who we are. Let us know, if you ever have an interest. And no shit, we left that show with like 100 dealers with orders.
Wow. Wow.
And you know, it was crazy. It just happened. you know.
Yeah.
And then, along the path, right after that, um, Cannondale goes into bankruptcy,
Yeah.
you know, and there's a supply chain issue with that. And so we had inventory and we were able, Cannondale dealers were just calling us. We need a new brand. We need inventory right now. Growth moment. And then there was a moment in titanium, because that was our biggest competitive material, for the time. Lightspeed and those brands were really strong in those years. Well, the
Yeah.
raw material prices spiked. And so there was a problem in their supply chain. So we grew with a big dealer base right there. So in the 2 or 3 years, a few things sort of fell our way. And we had a small but really scrappy team of people that were from bike retail. And we were able to deploy it, rapidly across the country pretty efficiently. And then
Yeah.
by the time it was 2004 or 2005, we're a, 8 to $10 million revenue distribution company in America, and 250 retailers, and we were legit, But that
Yeah.
but that first trade show, there no one even had a business card.
It's like a proof of concept moment, right?
Yeah, it was an introductory plan. Let's just bring it here and talk to people, learn.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what the market
Right.
let us do. Say a similar thing happened with Allied. We started HIA Velo. We got to a point where we had a product ready. We somewhat quickly came up with the brand for it, and we took it to a media event where this was when Press Camp was going.
Okay.
Lance in Southern California, he had that event, and we went to that, and we sat down with like 15 editors, an hour at a time, and we took them through the story and this little PowerPoint that we did, and we showed them the first products, and the wave of press that we got from that 36-hour period was 10 times what we could supply.
Oh, wow.
The
Yeah.
story just broke. And so, but you got to have a good story, for these things to work, and you got to do it at the right time in the market, and
Yeah.
it can work, but you
Yeah,
got to
it
be
did.
unique. You got to be unique, man. Cause I've seen a million other people
Yeah.
come around with fine product, but without a story or at the wrong moment. And
Yeah.
it just fizzles out in 18 months.
So, I'm still just marveling at your career. So, was there ever a time when you felt like, oh man, I'm in way over my head here? Or was it just,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, we're talking bicycle retail in
I
Arkansas,
say
you know.
way out front of my skis.
Yeah.
You know? But someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
I believe in the things that I'm doing, and I know the industry, and I've had my failures, and when you have your failures, you learn from your failures.
Yeah.
I learn more from failures than I do successes, really.
I think that's
Absolutely.
everyone,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, but yeah, there's some sleepless nights. Had a couple divorces.
Oh,
Stressed out my partners. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes
Yeah.
doing this, especially on manufacturing, it takes a ton of people. It takes an army.
Yeah.
And when you're manufacturing in Asia, you don't have an army. You got some friends you ride bikes with at lunch that are designers, and they can do surface modeling, and they can do decals, and they can market, and you just email it away. But what we're doing takes a freaking army.
Right.
Everybody has to get there. Everybody has to be motivated. Quality standards, constant improvement. And when you're dealing with factories and things like COVID, oh my God, the
Mm.
challenge of that is just unbelievably stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about it, I mean, both Chris and I have been in the industry most of our lives. Thinking about like you said, an army and all the layers of the detailed layers that have to be built to execute a finished product. That's where like just thinking about it's like it's a little overwhelming, to try to, and then also manage the
It
back end,
is.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you've done it now a couple times, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think my most important project is this one currently. Because I think we are cracking the code.
hmm
That's I see it. Still going to take an army. Going to take a mountain of money to get it done.
Yeah.
but I see it, and with this tariff moment, that's making it a lot easier on us for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard work and sleepless nights, but it's rewarding, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
rewarding.
Well, I could see like if it really does come to be in South Carolina like you're forecasting, I mean, uh, what an incredible success that would be for America, to
Yeah,
get manufacturing back
yeah,
here
because
on
once
that
one
level.
person really does it at scale, they'll prove that it can be done,
Yeah.
and the bigger guys like Giant, they'll start making their plans to do it, and
Yeah.
it'll be on it, and I'll be proud that we were part of the pioneering of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
if
Well,
I don't, hopefully I won't stroke out in the process.
right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Mike said it right. It's like, I mean, I marvel at your beginnings and being able to witness and see some of the processes that you've gone through and to where you are and the vision you have for the industry. I mean, it's truly amazing, Tony. You've just done so many good things for the industry, and
Man, come
um,
join me. Come on, get out of Northern
absolutely.
California. Come.
Dying to.
I need some Chris Padavanas in my life over here. Do big things together.
Yes, definitely. We will talk for sure.
Come on.
I'm looking to get out
It's
of
just
here.
4,000 miles away.
Yeah, that South Carolina is a tough sell.
Oh,
It's a nice area though. The upstate of South Carolina is pretty
Yeah.
nice. You know.
my
Yeah.
wife's all over that. She wants to go to the Carolinas. So
All right, I
Oh,
have an
wow.
end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know my dad's a big golfer, and at one point in his life, he's ready to move to South Carolina, and until he got off the plane. He
Yeah,
got hit
I
with that
mean,
humidity. He was just like, "Oh man, what is happening right now?"
we're in a
Yeah.
neat little corridor there. We're in the very tip of Spartanburg County, so 30-minute drive into Greenville, South Carolina, which that's fantastic area.
Yeah.
We're about a 40-minute drive to Asheville, North Carolina.
oh,
Okay.
Hour
nice.
drive to Pisgah National Forest. Hour drive to Charlotte. 2-hour drive to Atlanta. 2-hour
Oh,
drive to the beach. It's like it's pretty nice
Yeah.
little area.
ah, that's great.
Yeah. Seems like a
That's a
good zone.
that's a great
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
So, all right, before we let you go here, we really appreciate you giving us the time. Oh,
I, I meet these guys. You're on a podcast. This is Alex. It's the 7th birthday.
hey, what's going on,
Hey,
Alex?
happy
How are you?
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, that's great. Happy birthday.
Guys are in California.
Yeah. Does Alex ride a bike?
Not yet. I don't rush any of my kids into bikes.
Yeah,
I don't want to
that's
push them too early, and they don't never want to be part of
yeah,
All
yeah, I hear you.
right. That's
All right, but
great.
so before we let you go, I'm curious, is there a desire? We talked about World Tour team. We talked about the importance of that, and maybe not
it. Yeah, they're
as important
for
as it was back
sure.
in the day. Is that something? Is
We
that a
we
goal for
passed on a
time?
couple of the lower level ones over the last few years. I
Yeah.
mean, our reality is, if I signed Visma Lisa bike next year, I wouldn't sell one more bike because
Right.
we have to make them.
Yep.
And for us to make more bikes, we got to get more machinery, we got to hire more people, we got to train more people, and so we've grown time about threefold since our acquisition,
Yep.
and we're still selling at a pace globally at or slightly above our production capacity. And
Got
so,
it.
with bringing South Carolina on and continuing to scale Slovakia, I hope to be to a point in the next couple of years. Hey, what are you doing? Where we can grow, a couple thousand units of sales by having a world tour team.
Yeah.
So I think that moment will be 26 or 27.
Got it.
By there, we'll be able to take benefit.
Yeah.
And
All
then
right.
it's got to be the right team for us as well.
Right.
Because if you're not on a podium team, most of them are kind of invisible globally, unless there's some really good marketing content or partnerships around it.
Right.
But we're in the mix. I mean, I know what it did for our time at Orbea. I watch the market super closely, but I also don't want to be on the worst team in the Tour in the Tour de France. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of cost and no benefit.
Yeah.
And
Have
and
you?
I really, really, really want to build a company with time. It's not dependent on an athlete.
Hmm.
You know, we want to be dependent on European manufacturing, American manufacturing, our technologies, and then we want the sponsorships to be, you know, part of that, but not the face of our brand. You know,
Yeah,
because when you lose that face, when you're it's that year when you're out of the Tour de France and your sales get cut in half because you're no longer sponsoring this rider, you know, those are devastating moments to the companies.
for sure. Yeah, you definitely see it when you're on these group rides, where like all of a sudden everybody's riding Colnagos now,
Yeah, I mean,
because Tade
man, they
doing
had a
his thing.
year.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
did.
they had a
Yeah,
year. You know,
yeah.
good
So
for them. Yeah, that I'm enjoying watching that. Colnago's on a rocket ship.
yeah,
I
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
tell you that steel bike that they launched.
yeah,
Oh my God, do
yeah.
I? That is incredible.
Yeah. You almost said you
Incredible.
want one. You can't say that.
You know what? If I want one,
Okay.
Brant Ferguson, send me a Colnago.
There you go.
You make great
Yeah,
steel bikes.
yeah. But I think the thought process there is really smart, because
Yeah.
to your point, you got to be able to supply. If you're going to be there, you got to be able to supply the demand. You're spending all this money to get that demand, assuming that you can with the right team.
Yeah,
You need to be able to cash in on that if it happens. And also, I love the idea of building a brand that's not so dependent on that.
yeah. If it's based on technology and
Hmm.
American or European manufacturing, those be with you forever.
Yes.
I mean, you know, a lot of Orbea years was in some of the big drug days of the Tour de France. And, I watched some of my competitors at Interbike. They just printed their catalog with their Tour de France victory on it, and they had to throw it in the trash right
Oh,
before
Oh,
Interbike because that guy got busted. That happened a
yeah.
yeah,
lot.
Oh, man.
Ooh,
sure.
that hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was quite an era we all went through.
That was crazy.
It really
yeah.
was.
Yeah. I hope we're
For,
not heading through that again.
yeah, I know, right?
Something doesn't feel right out there. I'll say it. You know,
Yeah.
I've
Oh
watched this
my
my
gosh.
entire life.
Yeah.
Something's not right.
Uh,
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah.
well, yeah, I don't know. I'm the eternal optimist, maybe naive, but in the history of the tour, the the pinnacle of a racer's career was always kind of in their late 20s, early 30s.
Mhm.
And I'm hopeful that it's just the fact that we've got younger people now at a different stage of their physical development, and then with all the knowledge, the science involved with the nutrition and the recovery and everything. I'm really hopeful that that it's pure. I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of testing, but I also know there's probably a lot of money in getting around tests.
A
But
lot of technology out there.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to continue to just, be naive, I think, and just marvel at the success of some of these guys.
Just marvel at the power numbers. Yeah.
It's pretty unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that should be a red flag. But yeah, anyway. All right. Well, listen, Tony, we're going to let you go. You got a birthday to celebrate there.
I do.
Yeah.
7 years old
Awesome.
today.
Yeah.
Great, great,
So
great.
good. Yeah.
All
And
right. Thank you guys. Chris, good catching up.
Yeah, you
yeah.
too, Tony. Thank you for coming on, and I'm
You
glad to
bet. Can
reconnect
I
with
can
you.
I get you a real estate agent in South Carolina?
Absolutely.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Send me your
Yeah.
wife's email address. I'm gonna get it plugged in. Yeah.
You know the right channel.
That's right.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. All right, Tony. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate having you on. And
Happy
I
New
guess,
Year.
yeah, Happy New Year
Yeah, Happy New
to
Year to you
you
too, Tony. Thanks.
and all our listeners too. Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate you. It's been quite a year. We're gonna do a year in review episode. So
That'll be a fun one to listen to.
yeah, look for that
Yeah.
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right. All
Good
right.
stuff.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks,
All right. Take
everybody.
care, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Bye bye.